Good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee and Chat with Hallie Bridgman. I'm so happy you could join me. I have my cup of coffee in my cool Kentucky mug my daughter got me for Christmas this year. So grab a cup of coffee or hot tea or whatever you drink in the morning and let's chat. So I am coming home yesterday afternoon. I came home from my PWOC women's retreat. So for those of you who are not affiliated with the military community, PWOC is Protestant Women of the Chapel. So when we first moved to Fort Knox, good morning, Erica. How are you? When we first moved to Fort Knox, we saw like a advertisement, billboard, whatever. It was Christmas time, and it was join PWOC. So we looked it up, and it was Protestant Women of the Chapel. So immediately, this is what I thought. I thought stale old women in like plaid skirts drinking bad coffee from styrofoam cups on hard fold-out chairs in like a church basement. That's honestly like what crossed my mind when I heard Protestant Women of the Chapel. And I went to the kickoff for the spring semester, which would have been like whenever school started back from the Christmas break. And the theme was like a football tailgate. So everyone was dressed in like football jerseys and dancing around. And see, Erica knows she was there. Erica was in a Doctor Who skirt. That's when I met her first. And they were eating like tailgate food, and it was brilliant, and it was wonderful, and it was my people, and there was 100 women doing this. And then we chose the Bible studies we wanted to do. There was like 12 different options, and then once a week we go, and there's corporate worship, and then a corporate devotion, and then go off into your Bible studies. It's from like 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Thursdays. It's wonderful. And it's like where we found our community here on Fort Knox was through the chapel, through PWC. Good morning, Latoya. How are you? And so I have come, like, that's been 5 years. This past January was how long it's been since I started PWC. And every time we talk about moving away from Fort Knox, because my husband is military, but he's National Guard. We're not stationed at Fort Knox. We just live on Fort Knox. Whenever we talk about whether we want to move or not, like PWC is high up in the I don't want to move because it's on the list. It's on the column of we don't want to. It's the chapel community here on Fort Knox. And so all that to say, we had our retreat this weekend, spring retreat. And the last time I saw most of these women was the spring retreat last year. So last year, our spring retreat was the first week of March. And I remember like packing Lysol wipes and hand sanitizer because our family kind of preempted a lot of the shutdown stuff. Like we were super careful. We were already wearing masks in the beginning of March. We were wearing gloves properly. We didn't like leave them on. We wore them the way that's safe. And since March, like there's been hardly anywhere we've gone. And this was so refreshing to be back in a mass community of believers. And what's really interesting is that they asked me to speak at the retreat, and my subject was, but they basically pulled 3 subjects out of Hebrews 10, I want to say 23 through 25, but I could be wrong, which is consider one another, lift up each other, do not forsake the assembly, and etc. I mean, I could pull it up real quick. And so I was asked to speak on do not forsake the assembly. And as I researched it and as I thought about what the Bible means by assembly and all of the like my 3 points were assembling pleases God, assembling brings us closer, and assembling gives us power. And my research like affirmed us going on this retreat and being in a body of believers, even though we were all masked and even though we had to bring our own bedding and our own towels, and how even though we were eating off of disposable plates instead of, it just was, see, now I have to look it up because I can't think of the name of it and it's going to distract me. And, okay, Hebrews 10, and let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. So there were 3 speakers. One spoke on consider, I spoke on assembly, and one spoke on encourage. And so my assembly talk just affirmed the idea that we're not good alone, that being with other believers helps us, like the whole concept of ironing, sharpening iron. Basically without the other piece of iron, that iron is dull. It's dull and a useless tool. It needs to be with another piece of iron in order to sharpen it and to make it a useful tool. And so it just was it's always like a soul filler for me. Like my soul tank gets depleted because I work in ministry. I'm constantly involved in ministry. And this is when I go and get everything filled in order to go back out and do it some more. And it's been a solid year. And we've been meeting, like I've been part of a Bible study on Zoom this whole time, but there's a difference in looking in a camera. Like right now, I am not making eye contact with you. Right now, I am looking in a camera. And if I look at my own face, I'm no longer making eye contact with you, so I'm not making eye contact with people. I'm looking in a camera, but this gave me a chance to like actually physically look in people's eyes and talk to them. And it was filled my soul. So in a part of my talk, somehow I managed, I don't know how or why, but part of it was to read from Chasing Pearl, because one of the things I talked about was how I have an isolating job. And thank you, Kimmy. Yes, you need that. You need to be filled spiritually with other believers. I think it's part of the way that God designed us. So part of what I was talking about was having this isolating job where I can't be disturbed. I don't want to be disturbed. I don't want to break out of my world. And that's one of the reasons that I write from 4:30 to 7:30 every morning, is because nobody else is usually up. I am really creative in the morning. I could probably be as creative from 7 to 10 if I didn't get up at 4:30. But by getting up at 4:30 and choosing that time to write, that is my creative time. And no one bothers me and no one comes into my office. And when they do, it's startling for me and it pulls me out. So anyway, I'm going to read to you this morning because I've never done that for my Monday. And all right, so this is chapter 1, scene 1 of Chasing Pearl. Part of scene 1. I'm not going to read the whole thing. An icy wind blew right under Mandolin Clementine's skirt, making her shiver and wish she'd worn wool stockings. She held her hat on her head and ducked into an alley, finally getting some relief from the wind. As she clutched her purse closer to her body, as her boot heels clicked on the wet pavement. She clutched her purse closer to her body as her boot heels clicked on the wet pavement. Nervously glancing over her shoulder, she walked further into the alley, moonlight providing the only light. She couldn't see the edges of the light around the blackout curtains in the windows above her. She heard the noise again. It sounded like a strange buzzing sound. Hitler had used buzz bombs against London. Could New York City have finally come under attack? 4 long years of war and drills kept Mandolin on her toes and her ears perked up. No air raid sirens. The sound faded. She looked behind her again and kept going forward. Finally, she saw the chalk outline of the murder victim. There you are, she said, stopping with her toes just on the edge of the chalk. A large blood stain ruined the symmetry of the outline. So your killer was right-handed. I guess that narrows it down a little bit. In her mind's eye, the chalk blurred, and a young sailor in dress blues lay before her, a stab wound in his left side. What were you doing in this alley, sailor? Some kind of rhubarb or chasing a dame? The buzzing behind her came back, much louder. She ignored it. Was your killer an anchor clanker too? What about you? Were you a swigger or did you snap someone's cap? Suddenly, the buzzing sound overwhelmed her. Startled, she looked up, her eyes wide with terror. It can't be. Not now. The shrieking of the alarm pulled Violet Pearl out of 1944 New York City and planted her square back into modern-day College Station, Texas. Annoyed, she swiped at her phone to turn it off. 5:45 a.m. She didn't even have time to pretend to keep going. So that was used as a way to describe how when someone interrupts, oh, how about that? That's my alarm to turn my oven on for bread. When someone interrupts me, when I'm writing, it startles me, it pulls me out of the story. It like interferes with the way that I'm like in the story and physically present where everything is. And I actually have like a series of alarms on my phone to break me out in order to turn on the oven to bake bread, or it used to be to pick my kids up from school, because one too many times I wrote through pickup time and was late to get them. And it wasn't that I didn't think of my kids. It's that when I go into the story, that's where my brain is. And there's no way so I'm not neglectful. That's the word I was trying to think of. I'm not a neglectful parent. I just need something to pull me out of the story. And so to contrast that, I wanted to also show how I go into a story. So here is another scene. This one's very short. Violet closed her eyes again. So wait, okay. So we have the character Mandolin and the author Violet. Okay. You need to keep that in your mind. Violet closed her eyes again, took a deep breath, and traveled in time, back from where she sat, back across the decades to this very city. Finally, her fingers stroked the keys, and these words appeared on her screen. Chapter 1. Violet breathed deeply through her nose as the cursor blinked patiently at the carriage return. Violet felt the chilly December day harden, and Mandolin felt the sting of ice in the wind of a New York February when her doorbell rang. Mandolin opened the front door, and a blast of cold air rushed inside. So that is basically like I have to close my eyes and transport myself into the scene. And then suddenly I can feel the air and I can smell it and I can sense everything that's going on around me. And I'm there in the scene. So that's what I did today, was show you a brief glimpse into Hallie's writer brain after using that as part of my talk this weekend at PWOC. So, all right, back to work with me. Y'all have a phenomenal week. I am off to have dinner with my daughter this evening in Lexington because she and her boyfriend both have birthdays this week. They're both turning 24. And I'm trying to decide when I became old enough to have a 24-year-old daughter. And so our family is going to meet them for dinner, and that's going to be a great time. And in the meantime, I'm busy writing my next book. So y'all have a great week, and I will see you next week. Oh, wait. My scavenger hunt for my birthday giveaway ends tomorrow at midnight. Not 11:59 tonight, but Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. So I agree it's better to meet face to face, but even on Zoom, we're still meeting together. That's true. That's very true. I'm not complaining about Zoom. I was saying that I felt like my soul get filled when I got to make eye contact with someone. So thank you, Erica. I will pass that message on to her if she's not watching like she's supposed to be. So my scavenger hunt. So read Temperance's Trial, go to the scavenger hunt and answer the questions. The questions are in order as they appear in the book. And the first place is $49 Amazon gift card and a hardback of the Virtues of Valor series. Second place is Virtues of Valor series paperback. Third place is all 8 books in ebook form. So don't miss doing that. I put the link in the show information. And you have until Tuesday the 9th, 11:59 p.m. to enter. So y'all have a great week, and I will see you next week. Bye.